she's like, it's someone on the cast, tall, thin, short hair. So she sent her a picture of Raquel. She's like, that's her. So I was
Oh
like, oh my.
no.
So I posted it. 2 hours later, Ariana deactivated Instagram. And 3 hours later, TMZ posted. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow. That's gotta be like
Sometimes you just know. Like, I just
yeah.
knew. I just knew
Yeah.
that that was true based on the source and based on what they said.
Hello, party people. Hello. What is up? What is good? But even just saying that gets me out of the funk, because I have to say hello and welcome to another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks. We're getting the latest in reality TV and pop culture. But I don't know. I just wanted to spice it up a little bit, spruce things up around here. How's it going? Thankfully, the snow has subsided. I was deep in the trenches of Narnia. That's where I had been living in the past 7 days. 2 feet. 2 feet of snow, which it's fun for a second, you guys. It's fun for like 0.5 seconds when you're putting up the Christmas tree and when you're putting up the Christmas tree and you're getting holly and jolly. But then you got to go to the grocery store because you only got 12 eggs in the fridge. But you can't. You can't go to the grocery store because you're snowed in. But thankfully, we made it. It has melted and my allergies are back. So that's just where we are at this particular moment in time. I'm going to warn you today, the pop three, a lot of doom and gloom today in the pop three. It's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, unfortunately, but duty calls. We got to talk about the biggest headlines in reality TV and pop culture. And without a doubt, the biggest headline of the week is Jay-Z and the allegations that came out against Jay-Z this past weekend. There is a lot to discuss, what the allegations are themselves, why the lawyers are going back and forth with each other, how Tina Knowles got herself mixed up in it. Let's start at the beginning. So Jay-Z, and of course, trigger warning, because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Jay-Z has been accused in a lawsuit of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl in 2000 alongside Sean Diddy Combs. So the accuser claims that both men drugged and raped her, with another celebrity allegedly present as a witness. Jay-Z has denied the allegations, calling them false, and suggesting that they're a part of an extortion attempt. So his legal team has criticized the claims as baseless and emphasized his commitment to proving his innocence. He released this long statement through Rock Nation, which is his business. He says the allegations are heinous and false, calling on the accuser to file criminal charges if the claims were genuine. He says these allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. Would you not agree? Well, that's easily disputable. I've been watching a lot of news lately. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from professionals on television saying that the accuser would not be able to file a criminal complaint because of a thing called statute of limitations. So you have 20 years to file a criminal complaint. I don't know what state they're in. Whatever state they're in, it differs based on what state you're in. But in this one, it was 20 years. So since it happened in 2000, it's now 2024. They're not able to file a criminal complaint. So, I mean, not a great look for Jay-Z, in my opinion. He emphasized the need for real justice if any crime had occurred and suggested the claims were part of an extortion attempt by who he called fraud Tony Buzbee. Now, I've told you about Tony Buzbee. He has 120 clients that are filing claims against Diddy. So he's facing these accusations from Jay-Z's legal team of engaging in extortionate practices, Tony is strongly refuting the claims, calling them baseless and an abuse of the legal system. So he says his commitment to representing survivors of sexual assault. We won't allow the powerful and their high dollar lawyers to intimidate or silence sexual assault survivors. He characterized the lawsuit against him as meritless and asserted his refusal to be intimidated. He said his actions were part of a standard legal procedure involving demand letters proposing confidential mediation for resolving allegations. He claimed that these letters contained no financial demands or threats, contradicting the accusations that there was extortion involved. So, to support his position, Buzbee says, hey, I'm willing to release the demand letters publicly as evidence so everyone can see that that is not the case. So then this weekend, Tina Knowles gets kind of wrapped up in it because her Instagram account, likes a post that I believe was posted by TMZ. Basically, you guys have seen the TMZ post, right? They post a picture and it says, Jay-Z accused of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old. Well, fans were quick to notice that Tina Knowles had liked that Instagram post. She's saying, I was hacked. She got on Instagram. She posted, I was hacked. As you all know, I do not play about my family. So if you see something uncharacteristic of me, just know it is not me. Then in the caption, she says, no weapon formed against my family shall prosper. Please stop playing with me. Which people are like, okay, you got hacked. Really? Like, really? Now, I don't know if she got hacked or not. It does seem far-fetched. But what I will tell you is that being chronically online, and this is such a weird niche thing to have noticed, but I did notice it. I did notice it a while back that whenever I would be scrolling, I would see Tina Knowles liking a lot of TMZ posts. I see Corinne Olympios from The Bachelor liking a lot of People magazine articles. And I don't know if it's just my algorithm, because I do pop culture news, that those types of posts just fill up my feed, but it's always the name that I saw at the beginning because you guys know you usually see like one name, this person liked it or whatever. And it would always be Tina Knowles. And I'm like, wow, Tina Knowles is like up on the pop culture game. So I don't know if multiple people are able to get into her account or what, but I have seen that from her in the past. Don't know if she was hacked. Don't know if she just really likes to be up on TMZ. But then, the whole family goes out to the Mufasa premiere. Jay-Z's there, Beyonce, Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mother, and Blue Ivy, their daughter. Beyonce and Blue Ivy have roles in Mufasa. Beyonce voices Nala, and then Blue Ivy voiced another character. But this was a pointed statement, right? A couple different things. Jay-Z's like, I'm not hiding from this. I am going to be, because he's maintaining his innocence, right? So I'm going to go and support my wife and my daughter at this premiere. Two, that the family is putting on a united front, right? They're standing together, Tina, Beyonce, Jay-Z, their daughter. And we know that Blue Ivy does know something about the situation because in Jay-Z's statement, he says, we're going to have to now sit my child down and explain to her what is going on because, more or less, kids aren't stupid and they can read the internet. So, I mean, time will tell. The legal process has to do its legal process. I will say I'm not surprised, right? We all were just kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. Tony Buzbee, as soon as he started to get these clients, he was always talking about, there will be other names, there will be A-list names. And I feel like everybody immediately just assumed it would be Jay-Z. I mean, when you look back over the past however many years, it seems like, at least what's being portrayed to us right now, that wherever Diddy was, Jay-Z was not far behind. So, not really surprised. I will say too that people in today's day and age are so hungry for justice, which like rightfully so, right? And the last thing that anybody wants is for money and power to win over justice, and I feel like that's why people are so invested, right, in what's going on with Diddy and subsequently other celebrities that might be named at a later cause, is we're like, we really want justice to be served. Unfortunately, we don't really know what that is yet. They haven't gone to trial, they haven't stated their case or anything like that. It's just simply lawsuits at this point. But when you have somebody like Tony Buzbee say, I'm not going to be intimidated by, one of the richest men in the world, one of the richest men in the entertainment industry, it is refreshing to see, because all we hear is the opposite, right? That people are getting paid off behind the scenes and that you can't go up against this kind of money and power. But it seems like if anybody is going to, it's going to be this lawyer. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, we have a lot is going to follow this. It's not going to be done anytime soon. Let's move on to headline number 2. Former Golden Bachelorette Gary Turner reveals his cancer diagnosis, and his ex-wife, Teresa Nist, has responded. So this story confusing me a little bit, because while the crux of the story is the same, Gary and Teresa have different interpretations of how it impacted their relationship, which is interesting. But first, the People magazine article came out about this exclusive interview with Gary Turner, revealing that he was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer. And to kind of take you back to earlier this year, fans were really shocked when in March, Gary and Teresa announced that they were getting a divorce just 3 months after their televised wedding special. Well, this is what Gary said in the article. He says, I think it's time because it probably will clear up a lot of mystery around what happened back in February, March, and April. As Teresa and I were trying very hard to find our lifestyle and where we were going to live and how we were going to make our life work, I was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer. To make a long story short, he had gone to the doctor for some shoulder pain. He had a shoulder injury a couple years ago and was putting it off, but it's gotten worse over the years. So he went to the doctor for this shoulder pain, and one thing led to another. They found, images that didn't look great in his blood, right? The bone marrow. And they said, look, we can't do anything about your shoulder, but we have this other issue now at hand. At first, they thought it was a blood disease, and then eventually he was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer. He says, unfortunately, there's no cure for it, so that weighs heavily in every decision I make. In March, he said he decided to tell Teresa what I knew, and I explained the situation to her. He says, I wanted my life to continue on as normal as possible. And that led me to believing that as normal as possible more meant spending time with my family, my 2 daughters, my son-in-laws, my granddaughters. And the importance of finding the way with Teresa was still there, but it became less of a priority. He says, I hope that people understand in retrospect now that had a huge bearing on my decisions, and I think probably Teresa's as well. He says, I certainly wish it would have been different, that we would have found our way, we could have found a solution to these problems, and most of all, that I would not have had a diagnosis that so strongly influenced my decisions and the direction that I went. So I also just want to say, and this is important to note because Teresa has a different side of the story, is that in this article, it sounds pretty bad. And, I don't know the extent of how bone marrow cancer works, but, they were asking him, what does life look like from here on out? And he says, I live my life like the Tim McGraw song, Live Like You Were Dying. I want to jam pack my life full of adventure and love and whatever. And so it's really painting the picture of something very sad. And it is sad no matter what. But Teresa's side of the story is a little different. She says that his diagnosis didn't affect the decision to end the relationship, at least for her. She also says, he told me that it was the type of cancer that he would most likely outlive. She says, so that wasn't a factor in the ending of the relationship, at least not for me. If that was something on his part, maybe, I don't know. But no, that didn't factor into ending the relationship. Part of it was the distance, but that wasn't the only part. She says, that's really all I will say. She has said in past interviews that she didn't say, I didn't know Gary. She said 4 weeks isn't enough time to really know somebody, right? And their plan was always to move to South Carolina. And in this People magazine article, because I guess they did this interview at the same time. But she says, I was not forcing him to go to South Carolina. He had told her, I'm sick of this lake house in Indiana and I want to look for a change. She says, but when Gary got home, he kind of changed his mind after the show. He said, no, let's do 6 weeks here, let's do 6 weeks there. And she's like, I didn't want to do that. I really wanted a home together. I wanted the joy of being in a home together, designing a home together. I really thought that it was going to be, phenomenal. She said, I was looking forward to that so much. So I don't know. I'm confused because look, like if Gary decides, after getting this diagnosis, I want to be with my family at all times, I don't think anybody in the world would fault him for that. Nobody. I think that is probably the right thing to do. I think that is the reaction that every one of us would have. But Teresa is saying a lot, in my opinion, without, saying all of the details. And when she comes out and says, like, his diagnosis had nothing to do with me not being with him, you have to wonder. And her saying things like, you can't know somebody in 4 weeks. So I don't know. She did say, I wish him the best and that I know that he was in a very difficult situation and that good things will come to him. I wish him a long, healthy, prosperous life. I hope he finds his person. I want him to be so happy. And I just wish him all the best of everything in the world. So I think it's so interesting too, because you can tell they both want to get their story out there without looking like the bad guy in the situation, because they're like saying, well, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, but I wish them all the best. But it's one of those things where I feel like, look, it just didn't work out. They weren't supposed to be together. And I guess we can just leave it at that. I hope nothing but the best for Gary. I hope too, like Teresa, that he lives a healthy, long, and prosperous life. Just surprising, very surprising. And I've seen a lot of the comments online saying like, see, we don't always know everything and whatever. And I agree with that also. But at the same time, you can't expect anything less. You can't expect, these people to go on the biggest reality dating show in the world, have a televised wedding special, get divorced 3 months later, and have people not question why. It's just impossible. I mean, in a perfect world where the world is rainbows and butterflies and we're all frolicking through daisy patches, like, yes, that's fine. But this is the real world, and people are nosy, unfortunately. Myself included. All right, speaking of people who should never be together, Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly break up again just weeks after revealing their pregnancy news. And what did I say about them when Megan Fox announced her pregnancy? I said, these people scare the life out of me, and I would rather not talk about them. But here we are again. I would rather not talk about them because I feel like as I speak, Megan Fox can hear me. Wherever she is in the world, I feel like she's just listening in and she's casting little hexes on me from wherever she currently is. But anyways, the split reportedly happened over Thanksgiving weekend during a trip to Vail, Colorado. The story goes that Megan found something upsetting on MGK's phone. Now, what that is, I don't know. Is it text messages? Is it photos? Is it videos? I don't know. The source said she wanted him to leave the trip early, and since then, they haven't seen each other. Okay, so Megan just announced her pregnancy in November. She's due in March, right? So people are like, okay, well, I definitely, not to get ahead of myself, but I don't think it's going to, I think they'll end up getting back together. I mean, how many times have they gotten back together and broken up in the span of 3 years? What I do think is interesting is after their engagement ended, they kept their relationship a little bit more low profile, which, my knee-jerk reaction was to say, well, they should have just kept their relationship a little more low profile. But when you're pregnant, that's kind of impossible to do. But subsequently, right after this news, Megan sparked dating rumors with Michelle Maroney, her co-star in the film Subservience, after a resurfaced video of them sharing a lighthearted moment on set went viral. Well, Michelle's rep said any accusations beyond a work friendship are simply untrue. Michelle, I think, because he's Italian. Michelle is currently in Italy filming another project. And, the only other question I have is if this is true, like, why does MGK have stupid stuff on his phone? Haven't you learned by now? How old are we? How old is Machine Gun Kelly? If you got a pregnant girl with you in Vail, Colorado, Thanksgiving weekend. You have so much to be thankful for, my dude. Like, you don't need to be texting side pieces at this particular point in your life. But I don't know. For our sake, for the listeners' sake, I hope they stay broken up because, like I said, I feel like somewhere out there, Megan Fox has a voodoo doll of me, and I have no idea what she's doing with it. So I'm just gonna leave it there. Let's get into the deep dive. This one's going to be fun. It's going to be a little different. I am going to be joined by Bravo and Cocktails for a little Bravo gossip hour. You guys know how I feel about the blinds sometimes. You have to take them with a grain of salt, but sometimes they also turn out to be true. So we're going to get all into how these blind items work. We're going to try to get to the bottom of some of the biggest rumors in the Bravo sphere right now. So Bravo and Cocktails does like to be anonymous. So if you're watching on YouTube, you are still only going to see my beautiful, shining, adoring face. But we're going to refer to Bravo and Cocktails in today's episode as B. So please welcome B. B, thank you for joining us this week on MPT. How are you?
Hi, Morgan. I'm so excited to finally be here.
Yeah,
We
it's a
kept
long
trying, guys. We kept
Yeah,
trying.
we really have. It's been a long time in the making. And of course, we picked the busiest time of year, but which is why I'm even more grateful that you showed up today.
Of course, I'm very excited to chat. I love your account. I love your pod. I love all of your videos. It's awesome.
Oh, well,
I
thank you.
love your takes.
So sweet. Go ahead and tell everybody, in case they're not familiar with what you do, tell us what you do and how it came to be.
Oh, brother, what do I do? I'm Bravo and Cocktails underscore because my OG account got taken down. And what do I do? I talk a lot of shit. People send me stuff and I post it on my website. And the reason I post it on my website, Morgan, and you know this, is because when I used to just post it to my stories on Instagram, I had my account disabled at around 200,000 followers. So I made a website and it's cool because I created this little community and we have a subscription site if you want the extra hot tea. We also have like an extra podcast, kind of like a Patreon,
Mhm.
Discord channel, Zoom calls, like so it's like a little cocktail party we call it and it's a little community we have and it's fun. So,
Yeah. I mean, the blind item, era, I feel like really started taking off in the pandemic. And I think people can can read it for what it's worth, right? It's allegedly, it's supposedly, it's reportedly, but sometimes these blind items actually end up coming true. So can you tell us how you go about, what you post? Do you post everything that people send in? Is there ways to navigate? Do you just put allegedly in front of everything?
so we have a disclaimer on the site, right? Like we don't verify anything that comes in. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. That's obviously for legal
Legal
purposes.
reasons. Yeah.
So when I get emails, I don't share all of them, but I share ones that number one seem true. So a lot of people, and I'm sure Morgan, you have this too. A lot of people will send us DMs and they'll be like,
Mhm.
you can't say anything, but right. And to me,
Mhm.
it's always like, I will never post anything without someone's permission. But if somebody tells me, my friend works at such and such hotel and PK's been staying here for a year, and I get an email a month later that's like, by the way, pretty sure those PK and Dorit rumors that are starting are true because he's been staying at such and such hotel. It's like a puzzle, right? So
Right.
when I post the emails, I'll say, like, guys, this is ridiculous. I don't believe it, but it's funny, right? Because some of them are funny. Like some people send me, like, back when they were doing ultimate girl trips, like these girl trips, like the themes were like the seven deadly sins and one of them was sloth. And it's like so stupid. So I posted and like we laugh about it in the comments, right? But then there are things where I'm like, guys, listen, I can't say exactly, but sources have shared things of similar nature. And then I got this email.
Right.
And then a lot of times those kind of things end up being true, or parts of them end up being true. And then sometimes sources tell me things and based on other stuff. So it depends.
Well, I remember you broke the Lindsay and Carl story of them calling off
Yes.
their engagement. So can you walk me through what that day was like for you?
Oh my God. So it was summer, right?
Yeah.
And I got a message from someone who's like, listen, and this is always people think that, and it's not to say that if I repost a Bravo Leb, they don't DM me like, thanks, girl. Because of course they
Mhm.
do. I'm sure they do to you too. But people think that like Carl has a bat line to me or Lindsay and told me. That's not, it's always a friend of a friend, right?
Right,
So
right.
I get a message and it was something like, okay, Lindsay and Carl called off the engagement. My friend was going to the wedding. Her fiance's friends with Carl, like that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I got a few of them. So I posted it. I'm like, posted it as a blind, like this summer couple is whatever. And sure enough, Lindsay confirmed, like within 48 hours. Scandival, I posted based on some really crazy source, and TMZ posted 4 hours later. And
Oh, really?
and the thing was, like, that's the kind of thing you feel really bad. Well, you always feel bad, but that, like, the cheating thing, you're like, "Oh god."
Yeah. What
But
was the crazy source? Do you remember?
so this is what's crazy. The source was somebody in Tom's band. Okay, so Tom and the extras, the most
Mhm.
extras. There was a most extras sibling, right?
Mhm.
Who went to band practice. And it had just happened that Ariana had found out on, like, I wanna say it was a Wednesday night
Mhm.
because I posted on Friday. And so, basically, the sibling didn't watch Vanderpump Rules, but her friend who sent me the intel did, and they were like, "Oh my god, he was cheating on her and she found out at the show and blah, 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 blah." And now nothing was public yet. But in my head, I'm like, well, obviously, if this is true, Ariana already knows. So it's not like she's hearing it for the first time here.
Mhm.
But the girl, my source said to the girl, like, they're like, she's like, it's someone on the cast, tall, thin, short hair. So she sent her a picture of Raquel. She's like, that's her. So I was
Oh,
like, oh my.
no.
So I posted it. 2 hours later, Ariana deactivated Instagram. And 3 hours later, TMZ posted. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow. That's gotta be like
Sometimes you just know. Like, I just
yeah,
knew. I just knew
yeah.
that that was true based on the source and based on what they said.
So I kind of want to walk through some rumors that are circulating right now, and you can give me your take. You can give me, whatever tips that you may or may not have received. But let's start in Beverly Hills because this week a big story came out about Dorit allegedly faking her separation from PK, exaggerating the alcoholic claim to secure a spot on the show. What do you think of that?
First of all, they are 100% separated. As a matter of fact, somebody, like, over the course of time, people have been telling me about their separation, and it's actually going on much longer than either of them have been honest about. He's been in and out of that hotel for 2 years, according to a couple different people. Somebody told me today, my friend works at the hotel PK was staying in and out of for almost 2 years, so I believe the split is real. And in watching the show, I think you and the viewers would agree, I am sort of surprised at Dorit's devastation. Like, I feel like she's realizing in real time that he's not interested in making this work.
Yeah.
So I'm confused as to why people think it's fake. Now, do I think she's doing the most for her diamond? Yes, I think that they have a financial situation where she needs the Beverly Hills check, and I think she came to earn that check and to not let Kyle or anyone else. She was almost cut.
I feel like there's just been such a long history of rumors and whispers about Dorit's financial situation that it all kind of brings us to this moment where we're like, okay, that makes sense. And especially
Yeah.
because looking back on it, she would always deny the stuff about the bankruptcy. Even way back when Camille was still on the show, she would say things like, I don't understand where Dorit got all this money from, and then now this season, we're seeing her say like I stood by him throughout this bankruptcy. So I don't doubt that she needs a paycheck, especially if she is going to end up divorced from PK. And I'm also not mad about it. Like, I don't really care.
Right.
Like, it's making for a good season. So, what do I care?
I'm with you, and I think that she is doing the most. I don't mind it either. I think she's holding Kyle's feet to the fire.
Hmm.
I'm here for it. She's making all the ladies step up their game, but I do think that they're really separated. I don't think that part's a lie. No.
Do you believe this rumor? This was a crazy one that came out this week that Dorit was caught sneaking into Mauricio's new apartment in the late hours of the morning.
100% do not believe it. I think
I
it's so
don't either.
stupid. Number 1, they live in LA and they actually could get paparazzi, right? So,
Mhm.
it's just not true. First of all, Kyle almost succeeded in having Dorit cut from the show simply because she was no longer her soldier. Don't you think she'd definitely be gone if she was banging Mauricio? Kyle has a lot of power there with production. And second of all, Mauricio and PK are very good friends.
Yeah.
I mean, PK's all over town with a variety of women. I don't think Dorit's like that. From what I know, Dorit grew up in a very tight-knit family. This separation is very devastating for her. And I don't see her as somebody who would bang, whether she's on good terms or not with Kyle. They were very good friends for many years. I don't think she would do that.
Yeah, I don't either.
I
And
think
like
he would.
yeah, yeah. Well, he's skiing down mountains with naked women, all
Yeah.
the things. So wouldn't put it past him. Do you have any insider tea on the situation between Kyle and Morgan? That's taken a very sharp turn, right? I mean, from being plastered all over the internet, the media, even the show, to not being able to say her name on camera. I mean, it seems like there had to be some type of argument or maybe just conversation about Morgan not wanting to be involved in the media speculation of it all. Have you heard anything about that?
I heard that they were definitely an item at one time. I don't know. I don't believe that they are a couple. As we're watching them film, I don't believe that they were a couple. Do I know exactly why Morgan doesn't want her name? Not really. Um, I think she's kind of an unknown who probably mostly liked the attention.
Mhm.
So I think it's more of Kyle's call. And I think we saw, like last night when we saw her conversation with Garcelle, and Kyle was very vulnerable. Like, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know. I'm getting older. I expected to have a partner in my older age. And as I get older,
Mhm.
am I going to be alone? There's also the age factor, which I think probably plays a huge role in it.
Mhm.
Um, Morgan's in her late 20s. So they want different things.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a genuine connection there, and I think that at one time there was like I think we saw them and, chemistry is chemistry, and I think there really was something, and I think as time went, it's kind of like, do I wanna be on the road with a country singer in her late 20s? Like, is that where
Yeah.
I'm at in my life?
Yeah. So do you have any idea or thought about Kyle and Mauricio potentially reconnecting? I don't think they ever will.
Never. I mean, okay, never say never. I find it highly unlikely. Um, I'm more interested in if they stay married to make things financially easier. And I
Mm.
said last week on my pod, a follower of mine actually wrote in and to me, and she was like, "It's very risky. Like, think of how Erica and Tom Girardi were. If she would have divorced him 4 years prior, she would have had all his money." And
Right.
we see, you know, Mauricio settled, but he was involved in a lot of legal issues around sales of homes and buyer, seller, like a lot of stuff that could have really jammed him up. And when you get jammed up in that way, your finances are obviously affected and lawsuits and all these sort of things. And what the follower said was she thinks it's probably smart for Kyle to get divorced and to get her cut or
Mhm.
I mean, it's so complicated, right? Because a lot of their
Yeah.
money isn't exactly liquid and it's like projected income and all of that. But I think that's something interesting to watch. And as people advise her on what's best to do financially, um, I think she's got a lot of trust in him that I don't think she necessarily should where financials are concerned.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean, even
back
like
together, no.
yeah, and even like what he's doing now, I see people all the time be like, "I hope they get back together." And like I have that feeling in me, but if I'm Kyle and I see my estranged husband of 27 years, popping bottles with 22-year-olds in Aspen, like I no longer want to be
Yes.
a part of that, like you've shown me your true colors and not saying that Mauricio is some horrible guy. They're separated. They were allowed to do whatever they want. But if that's the choices that you're going to make, then I'm good on that.
Listen, I think that a lot of us were very naive as to what their marriage really looked like. And in I think that if people like us existed in the early days, it would have been exposed a lot sooner.
Mm,
But I think that he's a philanderer. I think he's a guy who sleeps around, and I think I received some intel I don't even wanna say because I don't know that it's true. There's a lot of rumors, but I think it got to a point where she had had enough. And I do believe that they both wanna maintain their family unit as best they can. But
mm.
what about that conversation last week when he was, like, laughing at her on the couch?
Yeah, she was, like,
Like,
borderline in tears, and he was just laughing.
"Ha, ha!" Like, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
probably was high, but still not
Yeah.
appropriate. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, he's just so unserious about their and it kind of makes sense why she was always such a nervous wreck and always crying about stuff that seemingly wasn't really that upsetting. And
Mm,
I feel there was always a lot more going on there than we really picked up on in
yeah,
hindsight.
yeah. It is crazy just to, like, get to this moment because like you said, nothing's ever been confirmed, but even throughout older seasons, there's always been little blips of alleged infidelity with Mauricio, and Kyle always was the one to stick up for, defend, make sure that any story like that would immediately be squashed. So I feel like for her too to get to this point and to have the separation happen and for her to kind of come to the realization on camera that, oh, he actually doesn't miss being married to me has to
Yeah.
be like a real pill to swallow.
Yes, because I get the sense that for a long time, if she heard rumors or whatever, he'd make it up to her and they would smooth things over and things would be
Mhm.
okay for a while and their children were younger. And I think it got to a point where he kind of was like, it is what it is. And so
Yeah.
that's when she was like, you know what? I'm not doing this.
I want to move on to Vanderpump Rules because huge news this past month about the cast shakeup. I want to know if because everyone's putting on a really brave face on social media, being okay with the shakeup news. Is there anyone on the cast that you've heard that really is not okay with this?
I mean, take a wild guess.
yeah, we
Sheena,
yeah, we can all assume.
Lala,
uh-huh.
um, you know, and I don't blame them. It's their bread, it's their butter. Yes, we're going to see them on Valley Village, but they're not commanding the check they were commanding at Vanderpump.
Right.
And I don't believe that, they tried to come out and say, no, it's not true that we were fighting over money. I don't believe that. And I love
Why don't
Katie
you believe that?
because I think they were fighting over money. I think that they were used to making a certain amount and they wanted to continue to make it. And they really thought that there was a strong motivation to do one more season. And I think they
Mm,
overplayed their hand. I think that they were filming that new crew at Sir. They had seen the success of Valley Village. And I think that a lot of the cast was very short-sighted and should have realized the success of Valley Village should have been their first indication that they don't need them. Like, I think they would have liked to, like, the network and production would have liked to tie it up with a bow, but
yeah.
I do believe it was a salary because the plan was to film. The plan was to film in the fall. You can blame Ariana's schedule. I believe Ariana was probably a part of the salary demands. I heard the only 2 who were very agreeable and would go with the flow were Schwartz and James.
Well,
Everybody
that
else
checks
gave it
out too, though. That
yeah.
they seem like they would be the easiest to get through something like that.
Yes, and I also and not that I've heard that this is happening, but if I'm looking at a spinoff, I don't see why James can't DJ there
Mhm.
and Schwartz can't, like, pop in to hang out. Like, I we're gonna tune in, but I think it would be cool to, like, tie in a little bit the old school.
Yeah. That kind of is floating around because I did see James posting some, Instagram stories of him DJing at Sir. I mean, the press release said that this reboot, some of it would be happening at Tom Tom, which I don't even know, like, the Tom's,
They don't
uh
own that. They sold that.
yeah, that's why I was confused. I didn't know because that was kinda hush hush too. They didn't make that very public.
They sold their small percentage and put it all into Schwartz and Sandy's,
Oh my
and
gosh.
today, Sandoval just, apparently told the judge that he's representing himself, so he's broke.
Yeah, but I mean, there's only one reason why someone would do that, right? And that's because you can't
Yes.
pay the lawyer fees.
Yes. I mean,
Why at this point wouldn't he just drop it?
he
Or is it
can't.
because
And
Rachel
Sa
Rachel
yeah,
threw in
Rachel would
there?
have
Yeah.
to drop it.
Yeah, yeah. What is he gonna do?
I if he loses and she's awarded financial, they'll garnish his wages the way they do a deadbeat daddy. I mean, that's it. Anything he earns, he'll have to give her X amount until he pays the settlement.
That is so wild. I mean, just think about how much their
She's
lives.
gotta win, and I don't know what the case looks like, and I'm certainly not an attorney. I don't
Yeah,
pretend to be, but yeah, it's totally possible that she wins some sort of settlement, let's say $500,000, and so until that's paid off, every time he earns any sort of legal check that's declared, you know what I mean? He'll have
yeah.
to give her X amount.
I mean, talk about regretting a life decision. One decision kind of blew up the entirety of his life.
Yeah. But I think we also forget, Morgan, that prior to Scandal, Vanderpump was kind of on life
Oh,
support.
yeah, it was. It
Like, it's
definitely
e right?
was.
Because I forget it too, and then it got really exciting again, and that because we were all watching it, right? And nobody
Mhm,
knew. Like, we were watching it, and the cast themselves, while they're filming, didn't know, which was
mhm.
wild.
Yeah,
It was a fun time for all of us reality television lovers, and
yeah.
then last season was I still enjoyed it, and I still would've been fine with them coming back. I mean, I don't know.
I know. I've been going through like you mourn what was because we all can agree that the show was not the same as it used to be. But, when you watch people on TV for 10 years, you also have some sort of weird attachment to them. And I feel like I understand the decision to reboot and whatever, and that had kind of been swirling for a while. But I don't think anything but that core cast will be Vanderpump Rules. So I'm like, just give it a
Right.
new name, give it a new life, something
Like
because
RHONJ, like, they're gonna face so much of
yeah,
that off the
yeah,
bat. Yeah, like,
yeah.
call it, like, Sir Servers or whatever, I don't know.
Something. I think Lisa Vanderpump just still wants her name in lights
Yeah,
on TV, which is also part of the issue. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I want to ask you about this is such a random thing that I keep seeing pop up everywhere, and I'm wondering if it's just people wanting this to happen or if there's some smoke there, and that is these Paige and Craig breakup rumors.
nonsense.
Why are they always subject to these breakup rumors?
I think that it's very simple. People are haters. Like, listen, you have Paige who is so hard to dislike. She's funny, she's beautiful, she's smart, super successful, and so many of us love her and are addicted to watching her and everything like that, hence Giggly Squad. I
Mhm.
heard, okay, a source told me, and I don't know this for fact, guys. This is what I do, so don't take anything I say as fact because none of it is. It's all alleged. I heard her and Hannah are clearing $13 million just off the Giggly Squad tour,
Wow.
okay? A lot of hate comes with that. You see a new apartment,
Yeah.
and then she has the most evolved man ever to grace a Bravo screen, who happens to be movie star handsome, an
Mhm.
attorney, has all of these successful businesses. I just think it's hate, and I think that they purposely don't post each other a lot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Relevancy is always good. I don't think they mind all the chatter. I think they know very well who they are. Listen, she's 32 years old. She's at the height of her career. She's making a ton of money. She said many times on her podcast, when a woman has a baby, it changes her life.
Yeah.
I think that she is, she's monetizing. She's not going to jeopardize this spot. It's not going to be, the spotlight doesn't stay on anybody forever.
Yeah.
So I think and this again, I haven't consulted Paige, but if I'm guessing, they're both doing really well. And she's like, all right, let's keep this train going for a couple
Ride
of
the
years.
wave.
Could
Yeah.
have a baby at 35, 36,
Yeah.
like everybody does. Um, So I honestly think it's just as simple as that. They were together on Thanksgiving. She was prominently featured in his brother's wedding photos. They spend a lot of time together. They just don't post themselves. Like he's at her apartment a lot. He flies into New
Yeah.
York a lot. Like I feel like he kind of gives the hints more so than she does.
Mhm.
Maybe because he's just sick of the freaking rumors.
Yeah. And he's such a lover boy. Like, he
Yes.
truly is, like and this is no shade to Craig, and I do think that he and Paige are the best fit of, like, relationships that we've seen him in the past. But no offense, every girlfriend we've ever seen, Craig has said she's the one. He said it about
Mhm.
Naomi. He said it about that girl Natalie that he dated for 2 seconds, and now he's saying it about Craig or Paige. I mean, they have proven to go the distance, time wise. They've been together, although him and Naomi were together forever, but we all saw the major red flags in that relationship. But I also think the fact that I don't know if they have decided where they're going to live, but I think the ambiguity of them not
But Morgan,
disclosing that
why do they need
information.
to?
No,
They're
that's what I'm
wealthy
saying.
people. Why do they
Yeah,
need to? Celebrity Listen, when they have a school-age child, they will have to decide where that child goes to school. Until then,
right.
they can live between Charleston and New York. They're
Yeah,
wealthy people. If she's clearing $13 million on her podcast tour, they can fly back and forth. They can keep 2 separate homes. They're not they're not me and my husband who have normal jobs and 2 kids. And, like,
yeah.
do you know what I mean? Think of them
Yeah.
like nobody asked Angelina and Brad when they were married why they split time between Montecito and New York.
Right, right, right.
I'm not saying they're at that level, but you get my point.
Yeah, I do, I do. No, I think they're ridiculous too, and I think it's just the fact that they don't give people straight answers about that particular subject. That's what raises the question marks. But like you said, we don't see these big checks that they're getting, and like you said, you have to ride that wave until you can't ride it anymore. And it's just the phase of life that they're in right now. I mean, me personally, I will say I just don't know. If you go that route and you say, "Okay, well, in 5 years we'll decide where to live and then we'll settle down and have a baby." But what if you guys still don't agree? That's the
So
risk
here's my
that you
thing.
take.
So I have a different perspective on this as a New Yorker, right? I'm from New York. I'm from New
Okay,
York
good,
City.
good. Give it to me.
Paige is from Albany. Absolutely no, I am not saying anything bad about it. She's from a gorgeous area of Albany that I am familiar with. It's a suburb outside. Her parents' home, you've seen it when she's there. Beautiful. She did not grow up in New York City. I find it hard to believe that she wants to raise a baby in Manhattan. You know what I mean? She's not Erin
Yeah,
Leach. She's not from the city. She's a girl from the suburbs. So maybe you know what I mean? Maybe they go
yeah,
to like a Jersey suburb or Westchester, or they find or she goes to Charleston ultimately. I don't know what it looks like, but I just feel like at 32, 32 isn't 42.
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, I get you.
who's to say she didn't freeze her eggs and she's not at all worried? I mean, there's so many different variables, but I do think that a lot of it is their appeal, but they're also very smart with how they work. They know all eyes are
Yes.
on them.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
all of this chatter, we just spent 20 minutes. Everybody who's listening to this is going to go to Instagram, look at it. Oh, wait, she uses Neutrogena, buy it. They're laughing
Yeah.
their asses all the way to the bank. You
And
know
good
what I
for
mean?
them, honestly.
Yeah. And I bet you they do a private wedding. I don't think that I could be wrong. I don't see them putting their babies on TV unless they had complete control, like a Stasi kind of thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think that they're legit. I think they go all the way. And I think everyone worrying about these details are very like ordinary people thing. And they forget that they're no longer ordinary people. They're now wealthy,
right.
famous people.
Let's move on to Salt Lake City because I did see that Andy teased the reunion last week saying there was everything. It's 10 out of 10. It's got one-liners, it's got fights, it's got makeups. Have you heard anything about the Salt Lake City reunion?
I did. I'm pulling it up because my memory is not the best. I did hear that this is pretty funny. Um, I heard that Brittany and Angie showed up in the same identical Oscar dress, and they only knew about it the night before, so Brittany had to get a new dress at the last minute.
Oh, how I mean, what are the chances of that? Identical dresses.
A high body count dress, I guess. And then I heard, hold on, I'm sorry, I
No,
put
you're
it on
okay.
there.
And if it takes you a while, we can cut it.
No, it's here. Okay. The Salt Lake City reunion started 40 minutes late due to one housewife. They had to film the first segment without the housewife. The person didn't know who the housewife was. My source was like, I wasn't told specifically. It started at 11 a.m., ended at 9 p.m. So that's a long
That
reunion.
is
Viewers
long.
will laugh and cry. Tears in control too. I'm reading this wrong. Sorry.
That's okay.
Viewers will laugh and cry at least 3 parts.
Hmm.
This season is great. Are you loving this season?
Oh, yeah, I do. Who do we think was late? It has to be Mary Cosby, right?
I mean, it would never be Heather because she wants that check. Um, it would never be Angie because she also is enjoying the wave.
Right, right, right.
And I'm enjoying her. Like, I'm really enjoying everybody. I have to tell you, not that I dislike her, but Meredith can go.
I've heard that she might get demoted, which,
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it and you have to remember that there are dollar signs behind these people, unfortunately. If I'm an exec, I'm looking at Meredith and I'm thinking, is she worth, the amount of money that we're giving her? And honestly, like when you think of Meredith from this season, what do you think? You think of the Audrey Hepburn bangs, and like that's kind of it, unfortunately. I
Yeah,
mean,
like, listen, like, her bar mitzvah was what I hope I don't know if it's bar or bot, and I apologize. I should know that because my kids have been to many, my son. Um, the reality is this, she's not that interesting right now. So, yeah, she doesn't have
but
that
I
much of
also
a
feel that
storyline.
way about Whitney a little, and she got the last
100%.
last seat at the reunion 2 years in a row is not a great look, I don't think.
And Whitney tries so hard, and she's still boring.
Yeah. Oh.
She's just I never was a fan. I found her annoying at best, and now I find her forgettable.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of feel like, at the beginning of the season, it was a little try hard, right? And we got all I hate when they bring in I mean, as a podcaster and blogger myself, when they get into that, dramas with the bloggers and stuff, that's when I start to check out. I'm like, okay, this is not what I
Especially
expect.
when Monica, who again, I was not a fan of hers and I thought they made the right decision. I don't miss her. But their whole sticking point was that she was a blogger, but yet Whitney is so closely associated and on the phone with one. Huh?
Right.
I thought it was a bad call for her. Um, she just looked silly. It was a
It didn't
total
seem like
fabricated thing. Her stuff is from Alibaba. Her thing is an MLM. It's a total grift. Her and her husband are grifters. Period. Dot. I'm not saying they're illegally whatever, but they like are gray area people.
Do you have any word on the potential for what's gonna happen with New Jersey?
Well, I do know that two women are test shooting in January. One of the women was one of the girls, not the Kayla or the Tiffany that we saw last season, but somebody else that was, like, name was brought up,
Okay.
and then somebody else, but I really don't think any decisions have been made. There was also a posting a while back, not a while back, like last week, like a casting call, like, in Jersey that
Mm.
sounded like Housewives. I
Oh,
really don't
right.
think they know what they're gonna do. Um, I think that I think something will be done. I don't think that we're just gonna lose that franchise.
Mhm.
I feel like a full reboot is really difficult and has been an uphill battle for New York. So I sort of see Rachel Fuda coming back,
Hmm.
Teresa coming back, and then I don't know. Do they do Dolo? Do they do Marge and like try Teresa, Marge, Rachel without the rest of them and see how that flows
Right,
and
right.
add in some new girls? Like, I just don't see them letting Teresa go.
I mean, when you consider New York, which is just crashing and burning, and then you also have this wild card of Vanderpump Rules, I don't think you add a 3rd reboot to that mix.
Right. And I feel like if they bring back a couple of the ladies with newbies, it almost doesn't matter who the ladies are. People are inclined to tune in. People like
Right.
Jersey.
Yeah.
People want that whole vibe. They want like
Yeah.
that Sopranos vibe. We like it. You know, so I just
Melissa and her sprinkle cookies.
and listen, I love Melissa. I just don't see them going with her. I could be wrong. You know what I'm saying? I just see them. I don't think they're going to do Melissa and Teresa again. And so if they're
Yeah,
choosing, I just see them picking Teresa.
yeah, yeah, I
And if
don't
they
think
go and if they don't go Teresa, right? Are they just going to have just Rachel Fuda come back? I don't think so.
right.
Because
Yeah,
if
I
they,
mean, Teresa, when you think of New Jersey, you think Teresa. I mean, whether you love her or you hate her, she has been there from the beginning. The most memorable storylines come from Teresa. Unfortunately for Melissa, to me, and I love Melissa too. I'm a Melissa Gorga fan. But when I think of Melissa, I don't necessarily think of her as much as I think of Joe and the complications between Joe and Teresa.
right.
So I think that doesn't necessarily help her case.
Listen, it's nice to have a normal life, but when you do, it doesn't make you that I don't mean normal. I just mean, she hasn't had tragic things or terrible things happen to
Scandal
her,
or yeah.
which is a good way to live a life, but it's not really the best for reality television and ta-da. And then you have somebody like Marge who I just feel like I don't know how production feels because there was so much drama, but she knows how to keep a train moving and
Yeah, she
you
does.
need a
I like
seasoned.
Margaret.
I do too. You
Maybe
need I
unpopular
get
opinion,
her.
but yeah.
I think it's I don't know. It's so hard because if you scroll through Twitter, everybody you don't know what's bots or whatever. And I'm not a huge Twitter, but when I do scroll, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I just want it to come back. So
It will.
here's
We're gonna
hoping.
manifest. It will in some way. It's gonna
They
look
are
a little
test shooting,
different.
so they are working. And I
Yeah.
always heard we won't hear anything until after New Year. So I tell you who won't be back.
Jennifer Aiden.
Yep. And Danielle Cabral.
Okay. Is that like for certain or just
I mean, we've been in this
pretty
game a
certain?
long time. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that I don't think Danielle Cabral ever was a great fit. Last season was obviously not a good showing. She had limited panels at BravoCon based on what transpired. And Jen Aiden, I just think they're very over her.
And Andy never really seemed to like Jen Aiden to begin with.
Never. And like it's too bad with Jen Aiden because there were things I liked about her over the years,
Yeah.
but she's just too not nice and like intrinsically an unhappy person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's sad kind of, but like
It goes too far.
yeah,
I think we
she's
can all
too
agree.
mean. She's too
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Well, B, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have just a booming business and a podcast of your own. So if you guys like today's episode, make sure you check her out on her podcast. Can you tell my listeners where they can find you and listen?
My podcast is Cocktails and Gossip, and my Instagram is Bravo and Cocktails _ And this was so much fun, Morgan. You have to come on my podcast next
Yes,
after the
anytime.
holidays.
Yes, yes. We'll circle back. It's officially circle back season.
It is circle back. It's been.
Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks. Merch is still live at morganptalks.com. A Leave Me Alone hat, a Leave Me Alone mug, a little Love You Like a Sis sweater makes for fantastic Christmas presents for yourself because you deserve it. Right now, my listeners can get 15% off when you use promo code LILAS15. If you're a Patreon member, if you're on that Lilas tier, you get 20% off. So if you want a little extra incentive, join the Lilas tier. You also get free shipping. You get all the things, my Lilas girlies. But anywho, if not, I will see you back next week for one final episode before Christmas. So hurry up and get all that Christmas shopping done because you don't want to be in the trenches, okay? I want you to be holly jolly, merry and light, not stressed. Okay? So get to swiping that credit card and we'll see you back next week for another episode of NPT. I love you like this.